Welcome everybody, and good evening. So I suppose most of you think this is going to be one of those old school motivational speeches, and it is, so let's get it over with. So I'll start with a piece of advice my father gave me a few days after the September 11th attacks. He grabbed me by my shoulders and he looked me in the eyes and he said, "Darlene, if someone tries to attack your school, run and don't help your friends." Sometimes it's better not to listen to your parents, and that was one of those times. As individuals, we all have our building blocks. One person might sort their pantry in alphabetical order, one person might throw everything on the shelf, or if you're like me, leave the groceries in the bags and pick up what you need as the days go by. Our building blocks determine who we will become. Listening to advice from others, well, except maybe from my father, can lay the foundation for future success. Success, like all good things, comes with a price. Accomplishments usually require three elements: dedication, intellect, and wisdom. These traits do not come easily and must be learned. We need to remember that we never stop being students. Even on our deathbeds, we will be learning how to write a will properly, or how to haunt those we hated during our lives. Learning never comes to a close. Someone may have the power to take away all your money, your family, your friends, and your possessions, but no one will ever take away your education. In high school, I skipped from 10th grade to 12th grade over the 2008 summer vacation. I only needed a few credit hours to graduate, so I basically became a senior overnight. When I was asked what grade I was in, I would tell people I was a junior, because I wasn't even really sure what grade I was in myself. I was a kid everyone wanted to sit next to, not because they wanted to be my friend, but because they wanted to cheat on my papers. I had a share of teasing, like any high school student. I was called ugly, weird, short, as you can tell. And my favorite, that girl who always gets 100 on the test. But not once did anyone ever call me stupid, because they knew that if they called me stupid, it would only make them look like a bigger idiot. But good grades didn't come easily, of course. I pulled all-nighters, like I'm sure some of you have. I would read my notes on the school bus, and I would use up packages and packages of highlighters. It's finals time for students right now, and I bet some of them are studying until they pass out or thinking about how to cheat, which I don't recommend doing, because professors know a cheater much better than a daytime talk show. Secondly, but after high school, I was accepted into the University of Houston, and I got a partial scholarship. I was 17 years old, and I had never seen a college campus before. I didn't even know where my classes were. So on my first day, I blended in with a crowd of students, and I was hoping they wouldn't figure out I was still a minor. I wish no one would offer me a cigarette or a lottery ticket because I would have no use for it. But aside from trying to fit in, I needed a way to cover my expenses. So I got a part-time job as a journalist for the campus newspaper, and I reluctantly took out loans. I wasn't even a legal adult, and I was already broke. My father, on the other hand, swore he'd help me out with textbooks, tuition, and supplies. But then he disappeared, and it wasn't the first time. My parents divorced when I was in the 8th grade, and I didn't know divorce would mean abandonment. After my parents were legally split up, I probably saw my dad in person 2 or 3 times a year, if I was lucky. My mom's job wasn't well paid either, so on most days we were broke. Textbooks, as I'm sure all of you know, are not cheap. Each semester was around $300 to $600 to spend on new books. There were times when I had to choose between buying a new textbook or eating for the next few days. I've heard the saying, knowledge is power, and that's true, but you can't eat knowledge. One thing I did learn in a traditional classroom setting is that whenever you are completely set on achieving a goal, there will be people along the way to help you. My professors were kind enough to lend me their book to use. So I'd make photocopies of the pages I needed, and then I'd return the textbook to them. Sometimes it did hurt being the only student in the classroom with copy pages instead of the actual book, but that's another lesson I learned on my own. Don't ever let yourself feel ashamed of something you can't help. Don't ever let anyone make you feel inferior. And if somebody ever attempts to break you down, remember that you are made of strong bones and tough flesh. And you have middle fingers, use them wisely. Not while you're driving. Even though I didn't have books for most of my classes, I still made A's and B's. I made the dean's list. I was inducted into the National Society of Collegiate Scholars and Phi Kappa Phi. I earned additional scholarships for my outstanding grades. I was an honor student again, just like I had been in high school. But what a lot of people didn't know was I was hungry. During my senior year at the University of Houston, I was on food stamps. It wasn't something I wanted to do, and it's not something I ever want to do again. I was able to eat sufficiently for a few weeks until one day they were cut off because my mom got a 12-cent raise. And we all know that rich people eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for breakfast, lunch, and dinner on 88-cent bread. And that's another thing I learned outside the classroom. If you're hungry, you will eat somehow. You can go on a bad date for a free meal, which is what I did a few times, unfortunately. Or you might find change on the floor for just enough to buy chips at the vending machine. Or you might find a college organization. I joined a few college organizations myself for the free pizza and chicken nuggets. My first question to organizations was never, what do you stand for? It was, is there going to be food? Like I said earlier, people will help you along your journey. But besides being hungry during my college years, I finally discovered what I loved the most, being a writer. As a young girl, I always liked writing stories and poetry, but I didn't think it was something I could do seriously until I got to college. I had no idea there was such a thing as a degree in writing, and I also didn't know I was actually good at it. It's a real blessing to be good at something you love. I don't care if it's underwater basket weaving. If you're passionate about something and you're talented, go for it and don't let anyone get in your way. My last year at the University of Houston was, like Charles Dickens put it, the best of times and the worst of times. I would write a new story every week and have it published soon after. I would write My professors were impressed with what I came up with. One of them asked me, who taught you how to write so well? And when I told him, this is my first advanced writing class, he looked at me and he said, well then I guess you have a gift. But the truth is, everyone has a gift. Sometimes we know what they are right away, and other times they must be discovered. When you find yours, be sure to unwrap it and show it off. But of course, there will always be people who want to put you down, no matter what. My professors love my stories, and some of my classmates called me offensive, disgraceful, childish, demeaning, etc. One classmate, who shall remain unnamed, told me I might as well stop writing because I was so terrible at it that I would never get any further than our own classroom. Remember what I said about using your middle fingers? That was one of those times. I wrote a story titled The Fork, which was loved by my professors, but hated by classmates. It was called several adjectives, mostly negative. But a friend of mine told me that she loved it, and she persuaded me to enter it into a contest. I thought about it for a few days, and I went ahead and entered, but I didn't really think I'd win. The Fork, a story which was torn apart and scorned by many people, became a finalist, and eventually won the contest. The Fork was later published in Glass Mountain magazine, The Writing Disorder, and chosen for the National Anthology of Best Undergraduate Writing 2013 by Plain China Journal in Bennington, Virginia. Another story titled The Bullet went through the same hurricane of insults. It was insulting, it was a horrible read, it didn't seem like a story at all. But a few weeks later, it went on to win the Sylvan N. Carter Friction Prize and appeared in an anthology titled Best Writing for 2013. I will admit it was tough to hear so many destructive comments about my work, but I knew the statements weren't true. Yes, I doubted myself, but I knew if I stopped writing, it would only be proving those who didn't approve of me writing right. If I had given up on writing, I would be miserable right now. I feel the happiest when I write, and I refuse to let anyone steal my joy. And that's the final lesson I learned outside of the classroom. When you come across people who attempt to put you down so much that you feel like giving up, don't. Because giving up accomplishes absolutely nothing. Giving up only means that your obstacles are stronger than you are, and 90% of the time you can defeat your obstacles, no matter how large they appear to be. There are people who put others down because of their own insecurity and struggles. Believing in yourself, despite all the negativity, is ultimately what makes you strong. Don't make another person feel low just because you're not having the best day of your life. Always be willing to help others, just as you have been helped. Is perfect. We are all flawed, and it doesn't matter what your goals are. There will be abundant failure and rejection as you reach your dreams. You will feel hopeless, cry yourself to sleep, and you might ask yourself why you even bother. So let me remind you of a few of the greatest failures who ever lived. Henry Ford went through 5 companies before founding the Ford Motor Company. His previous 5 went bankrupt. R.H. Macy, the founder of Macy's department store, went through 7 bankrupt businesses. Colonel Sanders, the famous fried chicken king, had his recipe rejected by over 1,000 businesses. Lucille Ball's drama teacher told her she had no chance of becoming an actress, but she would later go on to be the star of the television show I Love Lucy. Charles Schulz, the creator of the classic comic strip Peanuts, starring Charlie Brown, had every single cartoon he drew rejected by his high school yearbook. And Jack London, the author of The Call of the Wild, had his first short story rejected 600 times. The list of failures goes on and on. As I speak right now, there are thousands of people mistakenly pulling doors that say push. I'm a massive failure myself, and each and every one of you is a failure as well. And failure is not, or ever will be, equivalent to worthless. Failure only means you are trying to achieve. All successes are results from previous flunks and flops. There will be times when you want to give up and never try again, but I urge you to put all those thoughts behind you. Keep track of your failures so your triumphs will be even more glorious. Every time someone tells you you're not going to make it or you're being ridiculous, write it down. Put it on your wall and reread it with a smile on your face. Like the legendary Prime Minister of England, Winston Churchill, said, never give in, never, never, never. If you ever feel so downtrodden about yourself, I advise you to watch an episode of Jerry Springer, because the chances are you haven't been on that TV show. But if you have, or plan to be someday, remember that you're flawed like everyone else, and it's okay. Keep on going, even when you don't think you have the momentum. Energy has the ability to hide, but it's always there for your support. And remember, keep those middle fingers handy.